Hey everyone, great to have you join us for another episode of Spotify for Podcasters Masterclass. My name's Jordan, and I spend a lot of my time speaking with creators about what we can be doing to improve your experience. This series is all about helping you get the most out of our platform. In our last episode, we were joined by Gael from Teenager Therapy to get an overview of how Spotify for Podcasters has given them the tools to reach new audiences and set their show up for success. You can find all the episodes and more over on our Creator Resources Hub. Today, we're going to be talking about engaging with your audience and building community. The truth is, we've never been more connected. Whether that's across social, text, video calls, our media is becoming less of a lean-back experience and more of a real-time conversation. For a long time, podcasting has kind of been a one-way street. And for some creators, that's just fine. But for a lot of you, we know you want to be closer to your audience and they want to speak directly to you as well. It turns out your listeners have a lot to say. They might have valuable feedback on your show that you can use to grow and improve. Or maybe you want to know their opinion on a recent episode or get a gut check on something you're trying out. But all in all, you want to create a community of like-minded listeners. That's where Spotify comes in. We have a number of features that allow your fans to engage with you directly. Today, we're going to show you how these tools work, how other creators are using them, and why interactivity is so important to your podcast development. And while it's still early, we're already seeing promising signals for how interactivity can positively impact a show's growth and retention. On average, people who engage with Q&A or polls on Spotify are more dedicated listeners and twice as likely to keep listening to your show the following month. To help us unpack it all, we've got some very special guests on this episode. These creators have been really smart about how they engage with their fans, and as a result, are seeing their communities expand and become even more engaged. One of the podcasts making great use of these tools is Sistas Who Kill. The foundation of their show is based on their tagline, "Talk to us, we talk back." In the past year, they've more than doubled their audience, and they're one of the most exciting true crime podcasts out there today. Before they join us, let's find out a little bit more about them.
Sistas Who Kill is a podcast that covers the crime of Black murderesses. We talk about their life, the crime, and the case as a whole.
We talk about the catalyst that led them up until that point and how the justice system may or may not have failed them along the way.
I don't think I've laughed so much at a true crime show, except when I listen to you guys. Are you guys trying to make people laugh and trying to find some of those comedic moments in the grisly cases that you're covering?
Sistas Who Kill is not a comedy. It is a true crime podcast, and we just happen to be funny people.
So the podcast is 2 years old. Congratulations. It's grown a ton over that time. What are some of your favorite milestones as you look back over the past 2 years?
They're all really fun. I was reminiscing with Mara, and we used to have these meetings, and we're like, okay, we need to set goals and see, okay, our goal is 10,000 listeners. And it's like, okay, we got 12,000. Okay, our goal is 20,000 listeners. All right, you got 24,000. And it's like, we're not dreaming big enough. Like, we need bigger goals. So I think it's been fun to see us progress.
Based on your success, I'm sure you guys have a bunch of different options about how to spend your time and how to reach your audience. But what keeps you coming back to podcasting?
I'm telling you, if we didn't have an audience that loved us as much as we loved them, we would have stopped this a long time ago. Yeah. So there's a little bit of loyalty that they have to us that we now have to them. And I think it really helps us because when we were starting off, we didn't know what we were really doing. We didn't know how to do the audio. Sometimes the episodes came out really late. And because we had that FaceTime with them and we really interacted with them, it let them give us a little bit more grace when we were baby podcasters stumbling over our feet.
Mm-hmm.
Very cool. Babies no more.
That's what y'all tell us.
Let's talk about your relationship with your audience. It really feels like you guys have fostered a community around you. Would you agree with that? And how have you done that?
We use a lot of polls and Q&A with Spotify for Podcasters to just get them interacting with the episode before they post anywhere else. And I think their opinions is what matters the most. And when they're interacting and they're actively interacting, then they're telling their friend, oh my gosh, I was listening to this podcast and they had a poll. Do you think that this and this? And the friend now wants to listen to the podcast so that they can answer the question. And it's a cycle that we want to keep up.
What do you think makes a good question for Q&A and how do you come up with that?
That's me. And I have the podcast fresh in my brain. So I know what I've taken out. I know what conversations we had, and we don't see eye to eye on everything. So it's really nice for us to have the question and give them just, a small little text that they can actually give their opinions.
I love it when you do that, though, because there'll be times where you and I are caught in a debate. And I'll be like, really? You really think she should have did that much time? And then she'll come back out there and be like, okay, they agree with you, Taz. I guess I was just being harsh.
They settle all the debates.
Yeah, they really do.
You both use polls a lot to engage with your audience. Tell me what you guys like about that tool.
I like that it's a quick yes or no. It's easy to participate. Some people don't feel comfortable typing out an answer. It gives people that want to interact, that may be a little bit too shy to type out an answer. It gives them a platform to still say, hey, I have an opinion and it matters.
Can you show me an example of a poll that you've done that sticks out?
In this episode, it was 2 teenagers, and they got into an argument about a boy. And one friend is like, I'm about to come over there, and I'm going to fight you. And she's like, I really don't want to fight you. Please don't show up. The girl shows up anyways, and Casey ends up defending herself with a knife because the girl is coming over to attack her. Was this self-defense? Yes, won by 80%.
And
that seems right. 81%. So you two are clearly the experts at Q&A and polls. But for podcasters just starting out with smaller audiences, why do you recommend that it's important for them to use the interactivity features as well?
That's how you build your community. This day and age, the world is small because of technology. So I want to feel like we're in a community together. And I think that specific interaction, if you feel like you can reach out and touch me and you feel like that we're friends, I'm going to come back.
When you hear like pop news or more social podcasts with friends, you kind of feel like you're a part of that friend group. Mm-hmm. And I think we just kind of ran with it and was like, okay, you can be a part of our friend group. And they wanted to. Like, they want to sit at our table. So it's like, okay, pull up a chair.
Yep, make the table larger.
How have the last few years been? What has all this growth been like for you?
Overwhelming. In the best way possible. All of the love and support that we've gotten throughout the entire process has just been really, it warms our hearts. We feel great.
Thank you so much for joining us and sharing your insights. We're so happy to have you.
Thank you. We're so happy to be here.
Let's head over to Spotify Studios LA to hear from Morgan from Two Hot Takes. Morgan, welcome. I'm so happy to have you here. Morgan is host of Two Hot Takes. Would love to just hear you introduce yourself and the show for the audience.
I am originally from Minnesota, but came out to LA for a doctorate in occupational therapy. I graduated in April of 2020, like right at the beginning of the COVID pandemic, and I was unable to get a job in healthcare for about a year. And so the podcast idea came to mind. I was always sending my friends these crazy stories from the internet. And so I was like, okay, I can't be the only one interested in this. So Two Hot Takes was born, and it just kind of took off from there.
So obviously engaging with your fans is probably a really important way to build and maintain your audience. But tell me a little bit more about how you find you engage with your audience and how that sort of helped grow the show.
I mean, at this point, they're the whole reason my show has continued. If I wouldn't have grown the audience, I don't know if I would have had the intrinsic motivation to continue.
Totally.
So they make it worth it for me. I mean, it's become a big community.
And you even have a segment on your show that involves your listeners where you take write-ins.
Yeah, I love the listener write-ins.
Yeah.
I think I love them more than finding the stories on the internet because it adds so much more depth, like
Totally.
knowing that the community is coming together to then build the show.
And is that something you would recommend to other podcasters, that two-way conversation when you're giving advice to up-and-comers?
Yeah, you have to have a two-way conversation from the start. I mean, it is pivotal. You start a podcast for you. Like, you have to have a lot of intrinsic motivation when you start a podcast. It has to be something that's meaningful to you. But, you know, in order to connect and grow your show, there's also other people that are involved in it, right? If you're not having those conversations, you could be tanking yourself.
Totally. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about Q&A and polls. These are features you have used and get a ton of engagement on.
I love the polls. I started using them as soon as they came out on Spotify. I just can't get enough of them. It's such an easy way for your audience to interact with you, seeing what they're liking, seeing if you need to rein it in a little bit, but also make them feel connected and like they have a voice in the show.
I feel like you've done a great job of really asking the right questions and using the right words to ask the right questions. Any sort of best practices or tips that you could share with podcasters?
People love chaos.
Yes.
I think asking questions that are very thought-provoking or might have some gray area open for interpretation or could just like fire people up are a great way to start. And ask your friends and family, hey, if you saw this question as a poll, would you want to respond to it?
I like that. That's sort of a good litmus test.
Yeah.
And are there any Q&As or polls that you've done that really stand out in your mind as being either super successful or anything that, you won't forget?
I love using the multi-choice feature on the polls. So I had a story where this girl was dating this guy, and he had an old friend that he had, some sort of relationship with. And this friend, after a party at their house, wanted to sleep in the same bed as them. And in my head, I'm like, no way. But the guest I had was like, well, if they're all just friends, what's the big deal? And I'm like, you got to be kidding me. Okay, we got to see what the people think.
Yeah, totally.
So I brought it to the people. Everyone was rational. We all sided that, no, it's not normal. And then I threw in a little option. And I go, do you think he's cheating? And sure enough, 43%, yep, cheating.
And to what extent do the responses to your questions or polls, how much does it inform the content that you're making?
Immensely. I think the biggest tool where it's helped me grow my platform is by asking what guests my listeners want. I got amazing responses, and I was able to actually get a couple of them, and the feedback has just been incredible.
And those episodes have done well, I imagine.
They do better than any other episodes.
Yeah.
But I wouldn't have known what guests they wanted if I didn't put that question out on Spotify.
Q&A and polls is a good place to start, but anything else you would recommend to up-and-comers looking to really form deep connections with their audience?
Yeah, I think video is a great, great tool. A lot of people find your podcast through video, but then they might prefer the audio. They're seeing your face. They're getting a little bit more chemistry with you. And I think people are more likely to follow if they feel a personal connection.
Totally. And it feels like you said earlier, you have to have a lot of episodes in order to find success. But I imagine an important ingredient to engagement is just being super consistent.
Consistency is key. I think if you skip weeks, people fall off. It's hard to get those listeners back, especially if they're not following and not getting those notifications for when you drop episodes. So that's also a key thing is when you're starting your podcast, hey, make sure you're following on Spotify and hit the bell and look out for those polls. Constantly reminding your listeners for those things is really going to help you retain people.
Next up, we'll be joined by Blythe from Science Versus. Blythe, thank you so much for being here. Would you mind introducing yourself and telling us a little bit about one of my favorite podcasts and your role in the show?
Yeah, absolutely. My name is Blythe Terrell. I am the supervising editor at Science Versus, and we basically bill ourselves as your friendly neighborhood fact checkers. And we cover all kinds of topics, from artificial intelligence to affordable housing to deodorant, you name it, we've probably gone down the rabbit hole on it.
What are some of the tools you're using to interact with your audience and hear from them?
This season in particular, we've been using the poll feature on Spotify and the Q&A feature. This is our first season using those, and those tools have enabled us to connect with listeners in a totally different way.
Tell me how. How has it helped?
So sometimes what people tell us can inform our future coverage.
How do you decide between whether using a question or putting out a poll?
We actually use both for every episode. We're able to both hear people's stories and kind of touch on their lived experience and what they want to share with us in the Q&A. And then we're able to have a little bit of fun with the poll question.
Okay, looking to the future of Science Versus, any other ways you're planning to engage your audience further, either with more polls or Q&As or any other ways you plan to connect with them?
One thing we might do going forward is ask listeners if they actually want to contribute their story to the show, because it is really meaningful when we hear from listeners about how the topics we cover actually affect them in their day-to-day. And so the Q&A feature could be a place where we can actually ask people like, hey, do you have a story about this thing? Are you experiencing it? Do you have concerns about it? And do you want to be on the show and talk about it?
I love that. That's really exciting. I think a lot of creators are interested in Q&A and polls, but it can be daunting to get started. So any advice you have for creators looking to really embrace these new tools?
I would say, think about the voice of your show. Write those questions in your voice. And, think about both what you want to hear from listeners and also like ways that you might have fun with it. It has been a really fun experience for us to just like play with these features and to see what people respond to and what they like. The process is really simple. It's really straightforward. And listeners really do seem to like it. It's like you give people a button to hit. They're going to hit the button. It makes us laugh. It makes us feel like kind of closer and more connected with our listeners. If you try this, you might be surprised at the feedback you get, at how thoughtful people can be, and how nice it can be to sort of create a space and a community for your listeners.
You mentioned that when you ask questions, particularly really engaging questions, you get a lot of responses. So would you mind taking us through step by step how you publish a Q&A or a poll on Spotify?
Yeah. So you go to podcasters.spotify.com, you go to your show page, and then you hit the Interact tab, and that takes you to your episodes. And you'll see little boxes next to your episodes. There's a column for Q&A and a column for poll. You go to the episode you want and click on the little plus sign, and it says add a question. Once you add the Q&A and hit save, that question will show up on your episode, and people can start answering it. If you go back to that Interact tab, you can look at the Q&A box, and if there's a little purple dot, that tells you that you have new responses. And if you want to publish a response, you can hover over the response, and you scroll over to the right, and there's a little button that says publish. And if you publish it, it'll show up on your episode page on that episode. You can also click on the little dots on the right to block a user or delete a response if it's not chill. Those are options on the page too. And if you want to do a poll, you go to that Interact tab. You go to the episode you want. You see the right-hand column with a little plus sign. You click that where it says add poll. You write your poll question. You fill in your poll choices. And you can also set how long you want the poll to run. And then you publish your poll. And you can see the responses just by looking back in this Interact tab. And you can also see the responses as they come in on your episode page. And then other people, as they vote in the poll, they can also see the responses in their Spotify app.
We've covered a lot today, so if you take away anything, it should be these 4 things. Number 1, customize your question or poll based on your episode's topic. This allows your listeners to react directly to your content and bond together as a community. Number 2, if you want your listeners to engage with your Q&A and polls, call it out on your episode. Let them know that they can share their thoughts and reactions about your show right on Spotify. Number 3, Q&A responses are private by default, so it's up to you to pick your favorite responses to publish. And finally, number 4, our interactivity tools are designed to spark conversation. Give them some extra mileage and share your favorite responses on social media. We'd love to see some of the ways you're engaging with your fans as you try out these features. So be sure to tag us on social to show off your great work and potentially inspire other creators. Also, be sure to interact with Q&A and polls on our video podcast episode of Spotify for Podcasters Masterclass. We'll pin our favorite responses and maybe you'll even influence a future episode. To close out, I want to say a massive thank you to all of our guests. Thanks for checking out this episode. Be sure to stay tuned for more. We'll see you again soon.